Hello, everyone. Welcome. Um, hello. So dear Agnieszka, dear students and teachers, it's a great pleasure to organize this online masterclass as part of the European Film Factory project. European Film Factory is the film education platform, and the Institut Français developed it with the support of the Creative Europe Media Program from the European Commission. We developed it in partnership with Arte Education and our third partner, European SchoolNet. It is a great honor to have the film EUROPA EUROPA in the film catalog of the platform and to have with us today its director, Agnieszka Holland. Dear Agnieszka, so you are one of the most important filmmakers in Europe. EUROPA EUROPA was shot in 1989 and was a landmark in your career, and it remains one of your most acclaimed films. It carries a powerful discourse about Europe and about its history, which is still very relevant today. So all the students with us today have watched your film and discussed it with a teacher. Around 30 classes all over Europe are attending the masterclass, and 4 classes will ask you questions today. So they are from, let me introduce you to them. The Marinoni Technical Institute in Udine, Italy. The second class comes from the bilingual high school of the University of Czechnow in Poland. The third class comes from the National College Alejandro Ion Cus in Galați in Romania. And the fourth one is the FEDAC in Manresa from Spain. So now I will give you the floor, dear Agnieszka, so that you can introduce this masterclass and your film, of course. And then the students will ask you the questions. So many thanks to you again. And thank you very much for being with us today. To the students, of course, who are all here gathered around you and who discovered your films with the teachers, and thanks to the teachers whose motivation made this event possible. So dear Agnieszka, welcome, and I will let you speak with the classes now. It will be moderated by Adeline Chauveau, who is one of the coordinators of this project, next to Lucie Guérin, who is the second coordinator of the project, who you won't be able to see today, but she's here also. And many warm thanks to them too. Dear Agnieszka.
Hello, hi, hello everybody. Thank you very much for having me here. And you know, it is difficult to speak to so many students without seeing them, but I try to close my eyes and to imagine all this young audience. I understand that you've been watching my film and that you have some questions. And the film, I think, provokes many questions. It is a true story of the real man. And when we wrote the script, we've been quite faithful to his real story, even if this real story seemed to be unbelievable, bigger than life, too strange. The history of the Second World War, especially in the Holocaust, was the source of incredible, tragic, mostly very tragic, and sometimes miraculous human destinies. I did several films touching this period, and I did several films which are speaking about the past. I did it because I believe that the past is not dead, that the past actually maybe even is not the past. William Faulkner once said the very similar phrase. I believe that the past is somehow including in our present, and our relationship with this past, our actualization of this past can have the strong significance for our present and for our future. But when I was doing this film, I wanted this film to be also very accessible, attractive somehow in the storytelling, attractive for the younger audience as well. Because I thought that you can identify, you can have the empathy with this young boy and his incredible journey, because it's somebody of your age, and because it's somebody who could be contemporary, who fought not to be only the toy in the hands of the regimes and history, but who had to learn during the process who he really are, what is his identity. So I hope that you could connect it to the film and to the main character, to Sally, and that you will have a lot of questions which can be interesting also for myself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. So I am Adeline Chauveau from the Institut Français, and I will be the one moderating the discussion. So thank you very much for this very interesting introduction. It allowed all of us to understand better your work in the film EUROPA EUROPA that students have watched on the European Film Factory platform. So talking about students, it's now their turn to discuss the film with you, Agnieszka. So very nice to meet you all, and thank you so much for participating to this masterclass. So just a small reminder to everyone before starting. Each class has 10 minutes to ask questions, and each student who speaks can say their first name and their school, but not their last name due to data protection reasons. So I will kindly ask all the other students to keep their microphone off while not speaking. And so thank you for your cooperation. So the first class that will ask you a question is the English class of Mrs. Laura Bozo from the FEDAC Manresa in Spain, which is also part of the Erasmus Plus project ESTAF. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello, Ms. Holland. We're students of FEDAC Manresa. We're from the third grade, and Manresa is a small town near Barcelona.
Very nice to meet you.
Good morning, Mrs. Holland. My name is Marta, and our first question is, were you expecting the film to be so successful?
Well, you always hope that the film you are doing will be successful. It's you need this hope to go through this very, complicated and long process, because making one feature film means to spend 3-4 years of your life with one project and with one subject. And especially when the subject is so painful, like the Holocaust histories, when you have to go through the research, documents, films, photos, speak to the witnesses, and somehow imagine what it was to live in this situation and in this time. You want to have the feeling that the film will be alive, that the film will reach the audience, and that the audience will respond. I'm not thinking about the successes like, I don't know, the awards at the festivals, or Oscar or something like that. I'm not thinking in this category, but I always hope when I'm doing film that the film will have the real audience, that the people around of the world will be responding to this, that they find it, inspiring and emotional and interesting. So I had all those hopes for EUROPA EUROPA. I knew that it's very powerful and in this time very original story, because in this time it wasn't many films about the subject, and that even among the films about Holocaust existing already, this one has different approach and different style. And the main character is not only innocent victim, but somebody who is tempted by the terrible ideology, and only little thing are separating him from becoming the Nazi, the real Nazi. So I think that is the movie which can ask people really important questions, and especially young people, because when you are young, you are asking more questions about your identity than when you are older. And you think that you know already who you are, which is of course the illusion. But yes, I hope that the film will be successful, but it's true that the film had incredible success around of the world, and especially in the English-speaking countries, in UK and in US. It got many prizes. It got Golden Globe, it got the Oscar nomination. So, and the most important, it is still screened on many platforms and in many schools around of the world.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Mrs. Holland. It's a pleasure to meet you. And the second question is, which was the hardest part to film and why?
I'm not sure if I hear it, because you are far from microphone and in the mask.
Hi, Mrs. Holland. It's a pleasure to
Yes.
meet you. My name is Miriam. And our second question is, which was the hardest scene of the movie to record and why?
If the main character, the real person?
No, the hardest.
No?
The hardest scene.
The scene.
Which was the hardest part to film? You know, in the film, in the middle of the film, when Sally is already in the Hitler Youth School, he feels incredible nostalgia, or rather urge to know what happened to his parents. And he decides to go to Lodz, which was a Polish city where the last station of his family before he left, and to see what happened. And in the Lodz, all Jews have been put into the ghetto, which was surrounded by the walls. And in this ghetto, the situation was terrible. The people have been dying like flies from the hunger, from the malnutrition, so from the different disease, and it looked. You've seen some pictures probably from the concentration camps, from the liberation of the concentration camps, from the ghetto, and in those on those pictures you see the living skeletons. You see something which is purely terrible, and I had to find the way to show this terrible situation through the eyes of my main character, of Sally, and to show it in the way which is not too descriptive, too graphic, but in the same time, which has a real emotional power. And that it was the biggest challenge. It means how to do it. And we decided to use the situation that he's in the tramway, which is passing through the ghetto, which was real. It happened like that. One way of the tramway went through the ghetto, and the people who've been inside of the tramway, who was not Jews, couldn't step out from the tramway and couldn't see something. So we painted the windows, and we decided that Sally did just little hole to look through this hole and to try to see what's going on, and if he maybe will see his mother or father. And like that, what he sees, what we show from the ghetto, is very fragmented. It is the flashes, it's little pieces of something, but showing class, exactly, I think, creates bigger impact and expresses the horror of the situation maybe better than if we in very descriptive way, shown like more full scene of the situation. So, you know, to find this way to express it and to shoot those situations which he sees through the hole on the glass was probably the most difficult, psychologically also for me, because it's always very, you know, it's difficult to recreate the horrors like that. You have to be very technical about it. You have to look for the people who look so thin or so, I even don't want to speak about it. Anyway, it was something which I will never forget to shoot this scene.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Mrs. Holland. My name is Joan. And our third question is, how long did it take to have the movie done, from the script to the editing?
From the script to the release, it was probably with this film 2 years or 3 years. But sometimes it's longer, you know, sometimes 4 years, even 5 years, because also you have to find the money. It's not only to write the script, to make the research, to write the script, to make the pre-production, after production, and after post-production, which already is quite a long process, but also you have to find the financing to shoot the film. So sometimes it's like 2 years, sometimes it's 3, 4, 5. It's rarely shorter. It's practically, I cannot remember when it took less of the time than 2 years. But with this film, it was also something which taught me a lot. We finished the film. The film was long. The film had 2 hours 40 probably, or 2 hours 30. Anyway, it was quite a long film, but everybody, producers and, you know, some test groups liked the film. And finally, we did the big screening for about, I don't know, 600 people in Paris. And the response was very good, but me, sitting in this theater, surrounded by the people, had the impression that the start of the film is heavy, that it doesn't fly, that it's something there which I maybe can make better. And I was working with the co-producer of the film. French co-producer was Margaret Menegos, one of the most established and the wisest French film producers. And I asked her if she will agree that we'll go back to the cutting editing room and try to re-edit a bit the first act of the film. And she agreed. So it is costly process, because you have to come back to the, you know, to the point before the sound mix, before the making the print and so on. And we cut like probably 5 minutes from the first reel, 4 minutes. And when, after I screen entire film, I think that the first reel, first act is good, but that the rest is suddenly like too heavy. So we started to recut entire film. And we cut about 40 minutes from the film, which is a lot. And I think that it helped enormously. It means that the film became like much more accessible and somehow lighter. But after not long time ago, I was thinking that it's a pity that we don't have the footage from the long version, because we could make something like a mini-series. It was a lot of scenes which disappear, and it would be interesting today to have them. But, you know, we, in this time, we didn't like store this this material.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Holland.
Thank you very much for your questions and for your answers. And so it is now time to give the floor to our second class. So nice to meet. Thank you, Laura. Thanks to meet the history class of Mrs. Maria Isabela Meron from the National College Alexandru Ioan Cuza from Galați in Romania. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hi, Mrs. Holland. My name is Nikki. I'm the first student from the Alexandru Ioan Cuza National College, Galați, Romania, who's gonna ask you the question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Since the movie is not exactly easy to digest and even less so to create, what gave you the perseverance to keep on going with the making of it?
Well, when you start, you have to finish. So the most difficult it was to start. And I was fascinated by this story because I thought that the fact that this very young Jewish boy is going through is somehow influence, and his destiny depends on the two biggest totalitarian regimes of the history of 20th century, the communist one and then the Nazi one. And that he wants to survive in the first place, but he also wants to be the part of this bigger community. He wants to be same as his fellows or respond to the expectations of his teacher. And it is something which happened to most of the young people, that you find the balance between the expectations the world has from you and also and about your own soul or your own identity. And you want to please, but you also want to be yourself. You want to be the part of the bigger community, to be accepted by others who surround you, but in the same time, you don't want to betray something you feel you are. So that is the question which I think is like main question when we are growing, when we are opening our eyes, when we want to figure out why we are here on this planet. So, you know, it was the question exactly which I think is universal. In this particular situation is very, you know, urgent question, because he has to survive or to be killed. But even if you don't have this kind of the urgency, the question is still relevant.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Diana. I am the second speaker, and my question for you is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how historically accurate would you rate your movie to be?
This one?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, historically, I think it is 9. I think that all the facts I describe in the film and on all the background is really happened. Of course, is some kind of the compression in the film. Is some kind of the, you know, you manipulate a bit the reality to fit the story and the history into 2 hours of the storytelling. In terms of the Sally Perel destiny, I will say 7, 8. It means some things in his story we imagined or compilated with another stories. The main thing happened in the way we describe it in the movie. But the characters he's meeting have been partly imaginary, you know. His German soldier homosexual friend, he didn't exist in this way. He didn't meet the actor of this kind. The mother of his girlfriend in Germany was slightly different person. By the end of the film, when he was arrested by the Allies as a Nazi traitor, by Russians actually, as a Nazi traitors, he met not his brother, but his cousin. So, you know, this kind of the changes we did to make the story more interesting.
All right, thank you.
Hello, I'm Anna Maria, and I'm the first speaker. Are there any scenes that may offer discrete references to other historical events related to the Holocaust?
If I what?
Are there any scenes that may offer discrete references to other historical events?
But you know, we have plenty of information about Holocaust, and probably the best described period of the history of 20th century. And it's a many book and many historical books, but many personal statements and diaries. You have many films, documentary films. For example, you have very long documentary film by called Shoah by Claude Lanzmann, 7 hours documentary, but you have plenty of that. So if you are interested in this period, it is you will not have enough of your lifetime to study everything. When I was shooting this film, when I was preparing and shooting this film, it was much less of the diaries or memories, especially published, of Holocaust survivors. For a very long time, most of the Holocaust survivors didn't want to talk about it. They blocked somehow this past. They didn't want to share the horror of their experience, the guilt of the survivors also, the fact that they survived and their family was dead, with other people, sometimes even not with the closest family members. And it was only by the end of 80s, between 1970 and 1980, when they started a bit to talk about it. And in 90s, it was the flow of the memories which started to be published. So when I was doing the film, I didn't have so much of the personal material like we have today. But after every screening of the film, and I was traveling with this film around of the world and meeting the audience after the screening and discussing with the audience. After every screening, you know, it was always few people, sometimes 2, sometimes 10, who came to me and they say, Miss Holland, this story is incredible, but you know, my story is much more even incredible. And started to tell me their stories. And only one thing I regret is that I never recorded those stories, because it was dozens of them or hundreds of them even. And one was, you know, more incredible than the other. So, and those stories vanished because most of those people never wrote it down. But Steven Spielberg, after doing Schindler's List, created the foundation which recorded worldwide the statements and the memories of the survivors, Holocaust survivors, or the people who helped them, the writers among the nations. And this footage exists in the Holocaust Museum, is possible and online also. It's to have the access to that. And when you start to watch it, of course, after a while, it's a bit monotonous because the story situations repeat. But you see how, you know, you see the ocean of the human suffering and the human hope and the human tragedies.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question from your class, Maria Isabella.
Hello, my name is Alexia, and my question is, do you perhaps have a favorite or least favorite scene? If so, why?
If I have the favorite scene, difficult to say. Several scenes I kind of think that they work. And I like the scene when Sally has the the uniform from the school, Hitler's school, and he is in front of the big mirror, and he look at himself, he likes his look, and he start to dance a bit like, you know, Fred Astaire. That is a funny scene, and I like when in the middle of this, you know, terrible situation he is, and the terrible history we are describing, that you find the elements of the humor and lightness. I like also one of the last scene when he is captured by Russians after when the war ends, and they are in the middle of some surrounded by the prisoners of the concentration camp, liberated, and he's supposed to be shot by one of the prisoners. And in this moment, you know, his brother sees him, his brother who was the concentration camp prisoner, and suddenly they like, it's a reunion of those two young men who experienced the most terrible things of their lives, and now they are reunited. So it is some bittersweet optimism there, but more bitter than sweet, because, you know, what they went through cannot ever be repaired.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for this interesting exchange to understand better the historical context of the film. So now I will give the floor for 10 minutes as well to a class from the Marinoni Technical Institute from Udine in Italy. So special thanks to their teachers, Mr. Piero Di Silverio, who teaches filmmaking. He's indeed part of our EFF focus group, and he was one of the teachers creating the EUROPA educational kit. So now the floor is yours for 10 minutes.
Hi, Ms. Holland. I'm Thea from Marinoni Technical School in Italy. Being content creators ourselves, mainly in graphic design, we find it very difficult to evaluate our own work and decide when to finalize it. So I would like to know, how do you decide when the editing is over and your job is done?
I think I was speaking about it, but I don't know if you've been listening my answers to the previous class, to the first class. Did they or not? Adeline?
Yes.
Yeah?
But I think they wanted more maybe questions about the technical issue, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, you know, it is always very difficult to tell when you are editing the film. And when I edited EUROPA EUROPA, because it was 30 years ago, on film, it means it was still, we shot on film, and we edit also on the Steinbeck, the big editing table, when every piece of the material, when we wanted to cut it, we cut it physically, and we glue two pieces of the pellicule. And when you wanted to change, you had also cut it again, and after take one frame off, because if not, it didn't glue, and so on and so on. It was very elaborative process, and it gave, because technically it was complicated and long, it gave a lot of time to think. And actually I was always a bit, you know, tired by the editing, because I have already the next idea, but I had to work when the physicality of the, you know, process will end. So I really enjoyed the moment when the AVID was installed, I mean the electronic way of editing. Some of the editors and many filmmakers, directors, wasn't really happy about it. They found that losing this physical contact with the film is losing something, some kind of the metaphysical, you know, connection. But I really enjoyed it. And it was developed, and now it's really, if you have a fast editor, the process to edit is very fast. But the editing is not only a technical issue. In the first place, it's a conceptual issue. The issue is an artistic issue. You have to find the best way to express what you wanted to say and what you shot. The way which will be transforming your thinking and your work and what you have in the footage into the definitive storytelling, audiovisual storytelling. And the storytelling, it's like your handwriting, it's your style. And also you don't want to lose the audience. You want the audience to be captured by that and somehow making the journey, somehow, forgetting that they are watching movie, to be somehow in this reality. At least I like this kind of the manipulation. And it's difficult to decide when it's over, when it's the best you can do, because you always can make it slightly better. Mostly my first cuts, mostly, not always, but in most of my movies are really long. So after it is, and I know that it's not so good, the distributors don't like it, it's much more difficult to sell. It can also be like too long for the audience and they will disconnect. It's many reasons why everybody wants the film to be shorter than longer, not shorter than 2 hours. Let's say that it is magical length. So I try to cut it down, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I had an interesting experience with a movie called In Darkness, which was my last Holocaust story movie, which had we cut down, and we've been editing it in the way we thought that it becomes more and more powerful, and it had 2 hours, I think 17 minutes or 20 minutes, something like that. And all the distributors and producers started to say, yeah, now you have to go down to 2 hours and so on. So we started to cut it down. And we had a little less than 2 hours. And when we've been screened the film for the audience and for ourselves, it looked that it's much longer than when it was physically longer. So the length and the perception of the length is very subjective. Sometimes with a quite short movie, like let's say 90 minutes, you are watching this film and you have impression that it's endless. And sometimes you have the film over 2 hours and you don't feel that the time flies. So the moment to say it's the best version I can have, it's the moment when when you let your child to go to the party and to be by himself. It is a very stressful moment and after, it happens sometimes, and it happened to me twice with EUROPA EUROPA, exactly, and with my before last film called Mr. Jones. Then after finishing the film and showing it to the big audience, I realized that I can approve the edit, make it better, make it shorter also. And in case of EUROPA EUROPA, it was 40 minutes I cut down, or we cut down with the editor. And in the case of Mr. Jones, it was 20 minutes after the screening at the Berlinale, at Berlin Film Festival. So I think that it's sometimes difficult to cut out the scenes which been very elaborative, or you really like them, or they costed a lot of money and efforts, but sometimes it's necessary. You have to be a bit brutal to the material, and you need the distance to that also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gaia from Marinoni, and I wanted to ask you, how was meeting Salomon for the first time, and if you are still in contact with him?
It was, he's still alive, Salomon Perel. He's 95 now. I know that because he was born exactly the same day as my mother was, and she's alive as well. It was Hitler's anniversary, Hitler's birthday, in 1925. He's still traveling, and he's very intellectually very bright. So it shows also what kind of the vitality he has. And I think that this vitality saved his life. But when I met him, it was after I read his story. He wrote like about 20 pages, 20, 30 pages, when he described his story. And he didn't speak about his story for the very long time. Even his wife, when he moved to Israel, he created the family. He created little business. His business, it was the factory producing the zips, which I found funny because, you know, you zip your pants when you want. And the main hero of the story, it's Salomon Perel's penis. So he had 3 sons, and when he was in 50s, suddenly he started to feel that something is not right with his life. And he never spoke about his experience, and he never even told to his wife how he really spent the war. I think that he was ashamed, that he thought that, you know, especially surrounded by the people who've been in the concentration camps or ghettos or hiding, and he was in the, you know, extra Nazi school, he felt like, you know, like the traitor. And when he was in late 50s, he had the heart attack and he closely died. So he told to himself that maybe the secret, which is empoisoning him. And in this moment, he was invited to his city in Germany where he was born. And during this stay in Brunswick, pain actually, he told to one journalist his story, which was published. And suddenly, you know, his colleagues from the Nazi school and his colleagues from the army started to contact him, and suddenly, you know, the memory, the past became very like vivid. And in this moment, you know, a few years later, and the story was bought by a German producer. I did one movie with Arthur Brauner, who was collecting somehow the Holocaust stories, and produced several movies about it. And here, Brauner offered me to write the script about it and to make the film. I was like hesitating, but finally I did it. So before starting the writing, I met with Shlomo. And what I really respected enormously about him, how honest he was, you know. Mostly the people, and especially people of some age, try to embellish their past, to present themselves as, you know, as somebody who was good and noble and had always the best intention and did the best deeds. And Shlomo was like, he knew that his story has to provoke a lot of questions and doubts. And those questions and doubts he lived with all his life. He didn't know how it was possible that he accommodated so well to the situation, how it was possible that he somehow accepted this terrible ideology, which was directed against himself and his identity and his family and his friends, and that he was able to go with that. And even after the time, after those years when he came back to Germany, and his colleagues from Hitler Youth School invited him to some kind of reunion. Every year they did some kind of reunion. And during this reunion, they've been singing the Nazi songs from the school, and sometimes watching, you know, the Nazi videos. It was their youth, and they have the nostalgia for that. And when he was surrounded by them, and they've been singing around of him, he started to sing again. And he was like touched by that. He said, I cannot imagine how it's possible. I know everything about these crimes against humanity, but somehow, you know, I'm attracted to it means attracted. Somehow I feel this kind of, you know, of the nostalgia. So he was never like pretending that he was always right and always knew where he is and why he is why he's doing what he's doing. And even a few years ago, I met him in Karlovy Vary, and we had the conversation, and he didn't change. It means he was proud that the film became such a, you know, worldwide known film, and he was traveling a lot and speaking to the students in different schools. But he didn't lost this like awe, asking himself who I really was, who I really am, what the human being is capable of, who we really are, what is really our real identity, the core of ourselves.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. We will now pass the floor to our last class of the day. So they are from a Polish language and literature class from the bilingual high school of the University of Rzeszów in Poland. So Mr. Rafał Mazur is teaching Polish literature and language, and he's also a teacher from the European Film Factory focus group. Mr. Mazur just taught a webinar actually in Polish last week about the film EUROPA EUROPA. So thank you, Rafał. And now I pass the floor to your students.
My name is Gabriela, and as the first student from our school, I would like to say on behalf of my whole class that we are so grateful for the opportunity. And we are proud that our country has such a great representation around the world. Ms. Holland, you are pretty straightforward with sharing your opinions about the situation in Poland. Weren't you at first scared that by doing so you could close some doors for yourself in the film industry?
Dzień dobry. I'm really, really pleased that I'm talking to you today also. If I'm afraid when I'm expressing my political opinions and the current government in Poland is not very tolerant about the different views than theirs, I can have some problems with the reception of my films and also with the financing of my films if it comes from my native country. And yeah, that is the risk you are taking, you know, when you are the citizen. If the government becomes authoritarian, which unfortunately is the case in our country, you have three choices. You can pretend that it's not going on. You can support the government and become the part of this power group, or you have to oppose it and to express your disaccord regarding some decisions, laws, behavior, and especially if it's directed against the minorities. Like in Poland, it is directed against LGBT persons. And if it's directed about the minority, which is majority actually, it means the women's rights, which we can observe now in Poland with the protests of thousands young people, women and men, on the streets against the law which forbid practically any abortion in Poland. So, you know, I have my opinion. I have also my life experience, and doing several films about 20th century, about the totalitarian regimes in 20th century, about the crimes against humanity like the Holocaust or like Holodomor, the Stalinian crimes. I know that the past can come back somehow, that we have to defend the values the Europe of today is built on, and the values of the human rights and tolerance and the plurality and the state of law, because when we will not defend it, we can very easily and very quickly to be taken back.
Thank you so much for such an insightful answer.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Victoria, and I'm going to ask the second question. And my question is, a lot of people have influence on our lives, opinion, or even work itself. And was there a person or thing like this for you which influenced your work a lot?
You know, I didn't have like one master when I was when I decided to be a filmmaker, which happened actually very early in my life because I was 15 when I decided that that my, you know, I best will express myself as a film director. And since then, I started to really study a lot of films, a lot of filmmakers. I read a lot of books also. You know, I did a lot to open up my mind and heart to this domain of the artistic expression, and also to learn how I can find my own way in making movies. And I had many masters then. It means it was the period also, it was late 60s, so it was the period when European cinema and Asian cinema was extremely fascinating and innovative. It was many of great masters still alive and working, like, I don't know, Bergman, Fellini, Pasolini, Bresson, Tarkovsky, Andrzej Wajda, and many others, Kurosawa. After in 70s, it was the American new cinema, which started to be very inspiring with the films by Francis Ford Coppola and Martin Scorsese and others. So it was so many inspirations, and I decided to go to study in the film school in Prague, in Czechoslovakia. And that was the period when the Czech New Wave, so-called, with Miloš Forman and Vera Chytilova and others, been on the top of the young cinema. And French New Wave was very alive there. So, you know, somehow I was influenced by all those films, and some films which been forgotten and filmmakers we forgot, but I was watching their film and I really found them very inspiring. And I remember when by the end every year I was in my yearbook writing my favorite films of the year. And I found my notebook from 1965 recently, and it was 220 the most favorite films. It means I watched probably, I don't know, 600 by year, because I watched everything which was possible, and so many films I loved. Today, if I like 2, 3, I can be happy. So I don't know if the cinema became really more boring or I became more blasé and less enthusiastic, but it was like that. And when I finished the film school, I came back to Poland. I became the part of the film group directed by Andrzej Wajda. And Andrzej Wajda certainly became, after my producer, I became his collaborator, and we became very close friends till he's dead. And he certainly influenced me the most, but I never felt that I'm doing the cinema like he does. I knew that I'm different, but one thing for sure I shared with him, this desire to communicate, this desire to reach the audience, this desire to think about the audience when I'm doing films. Not in terms of the box office and money, but in terms of the impact of the communication.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm the second student from bilingual school in Rzeszów, and I'm Carolina. And I want to ask maybe not so serious question, but I'm curious that if there were any hilarious situations on set, what would you like to recall?
If it was what?
If there were any hilarious situations during setting Europa Europa?
Well, probably it was plenty, you know, but it was quite a long time ago, so I don't remember the anecdotes so well. Hilarious situation. We've been, you know, for me, it was very like, everything which around it, this shooting of this film was very, you know, powerful, because after the martial law in December 1981 was installed in Poland by General Jaruzelski. I was outside of Poland in this moment, promoting my film Provincial Actors in Sweden, and I gave several interviews to the foreign press, condemning the, you know, this martial law and the arrestation and internation of many of the solidarity movement people and several my friends. So it was impossible for me to come back to Poland. I risked to be arrested, and my passport, Polish passport, were taken from me. So I received some kind of the temporary document from some authorities, and I went to France. And for 8 years, I was unable to come back to Poland. And in 1988, when it started a little, the liberalization started in communist Poland, they let me, with French passport this time, come back to my country, and even it became possible to shoot EUROPA EUROPA in Poland. It wasn't Polish production, it was a German-French co-production, but the Polish television decided to give us the services and to shoot the film in Poland, which was wonderful, because I shot it with my crew and with Polish actors, with the people you know I love. And also it was much, much cheaper, because it was the end of the communism in Poland, and dollar was extremely expensive. So we had like probably 20 times more for the dollar in Poland that we could have when we've been shooting in France or Germany. And you know, it was 1989 when the communists started to shake, the round table started, the negotiations, and the first free election, partly free election in Poland happened. So it was this big, big change. My dreams became true. And in the same time, on the streets of Warsaw, we've been shooting the film with the Nazi boys in the Hitler Youth uniforms. And the people we've been shooting at the Hitler Youth School in the National Museum in Warsaw, which was just close to the Central Committee of Communist Party. And we put the big Nazi symbols on the school, on this museum, and the people was like asking what's going on. The Nazis are coming back. They've been totally confused. And you know, and the young extras in those uniforms. They've been, for example, in another part of the school, we shot in the Palais of Culture in the middle of Warsaw, you know, the Stalinian building. And it was exactly in Hitler's anniversary, birthday, the day we've been shooting there. And the boys went out just, you know, to smoke and so. And the people also have been asking, what's going on? And they say, oh, we are celebrating Hitler's birthday. So, so it was very, very strange time, which I think somehow helped me to understand what we are doing, you know. And the title EUROPA EUROPA came from the fact that my part of Europe, this post-communist part of Europe, came back to Europe. And the Europe for us in this time and later was like a dream. We wanted to be back in Europe. We wanted to like follow the European values and the European wealth and European human rights and freedom. But in the same time, I wanted us not to forget that the Europe has also this very dark side and very dark face, which was shown during the Holocaust, and that the criminal nationalism was born also in Europe. So Europe is the cradle to those two world of values, this light one, this bright one, and this very dark one.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer.
So thank you very much to you all. Thank you very much, Agnieszka. It was a very interesting discussions with very in-depth and qualitative questions, and of course answers as well. So thank you so much, and thank you also to the classes who have been following the event on YouTube. It is a pleasure to have you all here with us today, but sadly the masterclass is coming to an end. So before leaving, I would like to give the floor to Agnieszka Holland to conclude this event. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It was really for me very important to meet with you all, and to, you know, it's a great satisfaction to see that my film, even so old, and it's still like provoking a lot of questions and thoughts. And I'm thanking you for all the questions. We've been really very insightful and very interesting, and very inspiring for me. And I hope we will meet again somehow. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, Agnieszka. Thank you for sharing your views about filmmaking and storytelling, and also for your engagement with all those students today. It may have been the first time they had the opportunity to speak directly to a film director and to ask you questions. So I think that would be an experience to remember. So thank you for your generosity. And thank you to you, all the students that have asked questions and worked with your teachers for preparing this masterclass. I hope you enjoyed it. We also learned a lot, so thank you very much to everyone, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody who organized it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Goodbye.